Aaron Ask America.
Welcome to Aaron Ask America. On today's episode, I have a realtor friend of mine. His name is Lou. We met, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago. And when this idea came into my head, I thought of all the people in my life, go professional and personal. And I was like, this guy has to come onto the show. And he was so gracious to come on the show. So, Lou, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Oh, yes. As soon as this, I'm not kidding. Like, as soon as the concept came in, I was thinking, all right, got to get back in the office and invite Lou and, JTF. I asked her, I don't know if she's going to show up, but she seems to be interested in it. But I do appreciate you coming on the show.
All right.
So, icebreaker.
Okay.
Who is your favorite superhero and why is it Batman?
Oh, it's not Batman, sorry to say. Although Batman I've watched my entire life. Probably one of the first superheroes I was exposed to, but it is Spider-Man.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I have to say yes.
Why is it Spider-Man?
Well, he's cool. He's got the moves.
Mm-hmm.
He shoots webs. And he gets the girl at the end.
If you follow Superman, not Superman, Spider-Man, then he gets a lot of girls. Mary Jane, like Gwen Stacy, like a bunch of them.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, so he is a ladies' man. And what's interesting about Spider-Man is Peter Parker is a huge nerd. One of the other podcasts I listen to. So have you seen all the Spider-Man movies?
Yes.
So Tobey Maguire had the nerd look down. Andrew Garfield, someone on a different podcast I'm stealing from, was like, Andrew Garfield was way too handsome to be Peter Parker. Like, he's unbelievable when it comes to be Peter Parker because he's like this super like buff, really good looking guy, and like Peter Parker's supposed to be like this huge nerd. Mm-hmm. So the Amazing Spider-Man series failed because Peter Parker was too attractive.
That's amazing. I actually thought he looked really. You know how you say the Tobey Maguire was the nerdy one. Mm-hmm. Andrew Garfield to me was the scientific one.
Yeah,
I think that's what it took. But yeah, he was better looking than the other two.
So rating one scale of 1 to the top 3. So on attractiveness, number 1, Andrew Garfield.
Yep.
Then number 2 is it Tom Holland.
Tom Holland would be second.
And then Tobey Maguire.
Yep.
Did you think that you'd be rating the hotness of guys?
Never. Never really is. Great start.
So part of the reason that you and I jived at the very beginning was wrestling. So anybody that comes onto the show that I know that likes wrestling or used to, in your case, be a part of it, I try and say, okay, so in your opinion, what is the Mount Rushmore of wrestling for you?
When you say Mount Rushmore, what do you mean?
Greatest of all time.
The greatest of all time wrestler? Man, that's tough. It's a cross, but I would say anywhere between Hulk Hogan and it's a tie between The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. They in my book they were up there. I'm all about the who attracts the fans the most or the biggest fanfare. So I think Hulk Hogan was the one. I mean, completely revolutionized the industry. And so did Stone Cold and The Rock. I mean, you got Triple H too. I mean, there's so many of them that kind of like work together during certain times to do it. But yeah, I would say Hulk Hogan would be the man.
Okay, so I totally agree with you. So on my Mount Rushmore, because the whole thing with Mount Rushmore is there's 4 heads on it. So like number 1 for me was Hulk Hogan, right? Just because of if there's no Hulk Hogan, then there's nobody else afterwards, right? So it's like Hulk Hogan, then it's Undertaker, right? Because Undertaker was for 30 plus years top main event guy, right? Except for when he was hurt, and then you have, in my opinion, I had to pick between Stone Cold and The Rock, and because Texas rattlesnake, right? So Stone Cold makes it on there, and number 4 for me, even though I didn't watch his era at all, I fell off after the Attitude Era, but John Cena. Like, you have to, for me, being a casual watcher again, like John Cena seems to be the guy to take over the 4th spot just because he was like 17 or 18 time champ or something like that. He ruled his era, right? So I didn't watch wrestling from the point where kind of Stone Cold and The Rock walked away all the way until Kevin Owens showed up. So there's a huge gap, but I knew who John Cena was because of the internet and the memes and the you can't see me type stuff. So like I had no choice but to kind of put him as number 4.
I can see that. There's just so many different wrestlers that really caught my attention. Guys that revolutionized the industry. They were just they all worked together. I mean, you also had Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
That was it's just he made the little guys popular. And then then the big guys. Look, what's his name?
Andre.
Paul White.
Oh yeah. Big
Paul White.
Show.
I mean, Andre started it, but then everybody, thought that Paul White or the Big Show was actually his son when he first came out.
Oh really? I did. So I'm a brand loyal guy, so I was not aware of Paul White until he showed up in WWE as the Big Show. I think it was the Big Show Paul White. I think was his gimmick when he 1st came in. So like, I didn't even know that was his gimmick when he went into WCW. That he was Andre's son. He was huge.
Yeah, I don't know if that was his actual gimmick. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people believed it was his son and he was portrayed. But I don't know, because I wasn't a big WCW watcher either
Right.
at the time. I did watch when you had the Monday Night Wars, only because my dad would switch from one to the other. So, and then he got me into like, okay, when this one's over, let's switch over to see who's fighting over there, because you had a lot of guys that jumped over at that point that you wanted to watch.
So it was your dad that got you into wrestling?
Oh, well, my wrestling in my family, it's pretty much spawned. My dad got addicted to it because of my grandfather. My grandfather, and he's from Puerto Rico, and they were serious about wrestling. It's him and my grandmother would sit there, and this is what my dad would tell me because I was too young. Him and my grandmother would sit there, and I can vaguely remember, but they both smoked cigars, and they'd watch their Friday night fights every week religiously. Heaven forbid you were the one to tell him that it was fake, because he'd give you a forearm to show you whether or not it was fake.
Well, that was back when you never even, that was way before it was even come close to.
Well,
breaking.
you're talking 50s and early 60s.
That was what, Fritz von Erich era?
if
Or
not
Fritz,
earlier.
but what was Bret Hart's dad's name? I forget his name, but
Stu Hart.
Stu Hart, yeah, during his time, right?
Yeah, that or before that, because I remember when I grew up watching wrestling, and I got addicted to wrestling, of course, because of my dad. But I grew up watching Bruno Sammartino.
Yeah.
Okay, and then watching
Superstar Billy Graham.
Superstar
Yeah.
Billy Graham was another big one. Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant, all his matches were 5 guys against him. 5 or 6 guys against him in his young boy. That's all I ever remember of Andre when I was a kid. But I watched the managers too, like Classy Freddie Blassie, Lou Albano, the Wizard, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling. There was a lot going on back there, but that's how I started watching wrestling every night. Every Friday night. That's when I get to stay up late. Was Friday nights, and there was a lot of history in my family with wrestling.
Yeah, that's
all my kids grew up watching wrestling. And if I can say, I did some pro wrestling in my time.
Oh, we were going to get to that.
Oh, okay.
We were going to get to that.
So
sure.
So, my kids all grew up watching it, so it's like a generational thing.
Yeah.
Do they still watch it? I don't know. I remember when Hulk Hogan passed away, my stepdaughter, and she's 41 now, okay? She called me and was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this. This is like all our memories of you." Hulk Hogan passes away. It's all the memories of me. So, and it was because they grew up watching the first few WrestleManias with me and everything. So, but all my kids watched it at one point or another.
So that definitely explains, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, how did you get into it? So it was because it was in your blood, basically, watching it with your grandparents and your dad. And so was there a specific wrestler that your dad was like your dad's wrestler? That was his guy?
My dad's wrestler was Bruno Sammartino.
Okay.
And there were a couple of others. I don't remember. I remember Bruno Sammartino. And he loved Tito Santana. That was another one that was popular back. But the early days, he'd watch that. He'd watch. I remember who he hated. What was it? Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Yeah.
He loved Ivan Putski back in the day also.
What?
And,
So go ahead.
no, what were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, so like basically, so if he didn't like Greg the Hammer Valentine, does that mean that he wasn't was he a big fan of like Dusty Rhodes
Dusty Rhodes,
or Ric
yeah.
Flair? Mm-hmm. Ric Flair's one of those timeless characters that's kind of still around.
Ric Flair. My dad loved faces, so Ric Flair was actually a villain in his
Oh, okay.
in his eyes. He was a villain. He was a big face guy. His thing was the psychology, good guys and bad guys, and he always went for the good guys.
Yeah, I mean back then it was a lot more cut and dry. You had your villainous people that never was able to generally cross over unless maybe they went to like a new territory where like you didn't know who they were, so they could stretch their legs and either go from baby face to heel or vice versa, right? But growing up, who was your guy that like so when you made the decision to step into the ring and start training to become a wrestler, like was there a specific wrestler or was it just the business in general that got you to do that?
Well, my story is a little unique. I've always been a wrestling fan my whole life, and I've always dreamed of becoming a wrestler. But did I actually believe I would become a wrestler? Heck no. Not for a split second in my mind did I ever even think that would happen. And yeah, when we were kids, that's all we did. We wrestled in the grass. We wrestled any chance we could get, and we tried to simulate the moves and everything. And this is way before backyard wrestling.
Yeah,
Backyard
yeah.
wrestling didn't even exist, or at least I didn't know about it.
Oh, it existed because you were doing it.
Well, yeah, well, I did back. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, if you say it that way, but we didn't go through chairs and things like that. But I wasn't an athletic kid growing up. I somewhere in my late teens, I was about 17, 16, 17, around there is when I mutated and I started growing muscles, and I was always going to the gym, but I didn't get strong until later in life, my late teens, and I worked out, and believe it or not, I didn't get into wrestling until my 30s.
Oh, okay.
So I've always I've always exercised. And it was the fad at the time, because remember in the 80s, the big thing was going to the gym, wearing your spandex, and then going home, and then drinking your protein shake or whatever, as nasty as they used to be, and watching the wrestling on the weekends. But somewhere in my early 30s, I was actually at the gym when the thought came upon me. So I was watching this show called Tough Enough. It was late at night. It was about 9 o'clock at night.
MTV, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it was MTV. I forgot what channel it was, but it was Tough Enough. And that was the reality TV show where they would give people to prove themselves as wrestlers, and whoever didn't get eliminated at the end would get like a $1 million contract or a $2 million contract. And I believe I was watching an episode where they were actually in a wrestling arena getting beat up by Hardcore Holly. And was it Hardcore Holly? Yeah.
It's either Hardcore Holly or Al Snow, I think, were the two
It
guys.
was one of the, it was hard. I forgot what it was. It was somebody beating everybody up pretty bad. One guy ended up with a black eye and stuff, but they were teaching him how to do the some of the moves and everything. And I was standing. It was just me and this other guy. The other guy was huge. Literally was about 300 pounds soaking wet solid muscle. And me at the time, I weighed about 205, and I was in really good shape, but never thought that I would be a wrestler. But I don't know, for some reason I turned around to him, I'd be like, man, if there was a school like that around here, I'd love to join it. And it was during a commercial, and he goes, really? So I looked at him, and I was like, why did you say that way? And he was like, well, it's because I just joined one a few weeks ago. And I was like, where? And he told me where it was. This was back in my hometown.
Yeah.
And he he gave me the ad. He told me about it, and I asked him, well, I don't ever think I'd be able, looking at him, I don't ever think I'd ever be a wrestler, but I'd love to be a manager or a referee, something, being a part of that, because I know it's a big show and there's a lot of parts to it.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, they actually do train referees and managers. He's like, and I asked him, how much did it cost? And he's like, well, it's like $1,000 a year, but you pay like $100 a month for the first 10 months, and then you don't have to pay anymore. And I was like, well, that's a pretty good deal. I was like, I think you'd have to pay a lot more than that. So he gave me the address, and there off I go. Okay. The place back then was called the Long Island Wrestling Federation, LIWF, and it was called Ghetto Square Garden. That was the name. Yeah, that's
Square
what they
Garden.
called it. It was the pet name that they gave the
Yeah,
place,
that's
because
funny.
literally it was in the middle of the ghetto, and but it was a safe zone. That I went there, and I met this one gentleman who actually ran the place, one of the promoters. Actually, he was one of the trainers. His name was the Tower of Torture.
Oh.
That was his. He was about 6'5", a tall guy, very nice. One thing I learned about wrestlers is when you meet, they have a code, and the code is to be humble. And the handshakes are never hard handshakes. They're actually very gentle handshakes, and looking, you're whoever you're talking to in the eye, and just showing respect.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that I like that kind of atmosphere. Little did I know that they beat the crap out of you after a few days of getting in there. But I went in there. He explained to me the deal, and it wasn't that tough. It was like you pay $100 a month. You come in, 2-3 times a week, and we'll train you how to be a wrestler or a referee. And I told him I want hey, I wouldn't mind being either a personality like a manager or a referee. He's like, okay, either way, we train you the same way, because eventually what's going to happen is you're going to end up getting picked up and thrown by one of the wrestlers. You need to protect
Whether
yourself.
you're a manager or not.
Whether you're a manager or not. And you see it every now and then when managers get hit and they go flying off
Yeah.
outside of the ring onto the concrete, and sometimes they get hit. And I mean, if you ever remember, the Ultimate Warrior, that was another icon back in the day. But he picked up girl Sensational Sherry and just dropped her, and he picked up multiple managers
Yeah,
and
it's
done
true.
the same thing.
Yeah.
So you have to learn how to fall, and you have to, and also it also teaches you your surroundings, what's going on, and you get an idea of how everything works. So my first day was a doozy. My first day, they put us in a little practice ring. I wasn't allowed to get in the ring for about 6 months, okay? My first ring, before anything, they pointed to the practice ring. They're like, well, you're going to be working there, okay, but not now. Right now, you're going to talk to this guy over here. So he just took me to a random wrestler there, and he looks at me and he goes, oh, so you're signing up to be a wrestler, huh? He's like, yeah, okay. He's okay, let's see what you're made of. He goes, I want you to jog around the ring. Don't stop until I tell you.
They made you run the ropes.
No, around the ring.
Oh, around the ring. Okay.
Literally jog around the ring, okay? And I did that. And like I say, the humbleness is what I like. So I'm a very humble person, and
Yeah.
I'll do what somebody tells me to do. I don't have to have rhyme or reason for it. For me, I'm always going to think it's part of the program. Well, about 2 hours later,
Oh my gosh.
that guy turns around. He's like, "You're still here?"
You're just like, I'm right,
I
bro.
was like, "Well, you told me round right." Like the whole time in my head, like Peter Parker, I'm like, "This is a test."
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was a test. They wanted to see if I'd walk out and never come back again.
Yeah.
The fact that I was there for 2 hours, thank goodness that I ran a lot back then. And I would run for about 2-3 hours every other day. So it was nothing to me to jog around the arena. The ring wasn't that big, and I just kept going and going and going. And the whole time I'm watching everything that's going on. Well, after that, that's when they took me to the little small practice ring, which is about 2 feet off the ground. And it's just some type of and it really wasn't springboard or anything like that, and they taught me how to fall.
Yeah, take a
the,
bump.
The first thing was actually kind of like a reverse sit up where you're sitting down, and they're teaching you how to go back and slapping your arms.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. I mastered that the first 3 times, just slapping your arm, because in my younger days I did take judo. So I knew how to distribute body weight. So I got the picture. Okay, when they fall, they distribute their body weight. Okay. So little by little, they were taking me off my buttocks. So now at this point, now I'm squatting really low and just going back and
Yeah.
doing taking the bump. And which was easy, not hard at all, because you're not that far off the ground. It got hard when they told me to stand up and fall backwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Scary. It hurt the first time because I completely collapsed as opposed to falling. But I started doing it little by little. You lose your fear, okay? You also lose your mind because I must have banged my head like 30 times trying to do that. The next thing he's like, okay, you're done. Like, come back, in a day or two and we'll, do the same thing all over again. I was like, oh man, I got to run for two hours again, which they didn't do. I came back 2 days. Oh, wait, I didn't finish yet. So at that point, I haven't had a drink the whole night, and I was hot. And it
2
was
hours.
hot. It was about 78 degrees. New York at that time was humid. And I had a Gatorade, and I chugged the whole Gatorade completely. I mean, it was... Well, they had a dressing room that was upstairs, and I went upstairs, and right before the dressing room, I can feel everything I drank coming up. And thank goodness there was a garbage can there because I projectiled the whole bottle of Gatorade into the thing. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should have drank it a little bit slower.
Right.
Well, so I went back the next time, and again, just learning how to fall. At this point, you actually like kick your feet up and fall. But then, the second day I was there, they told me, hey, why don't I want you to go to JD. He's going to stretch you out. So, okay. So
At the time, you didn't know what that meant. You're like, oh, okay, he's going to stretch my legs.
I didn't
Yeah.
know it was good. I thought I was going to be put in a torture rack. But the gentleman actually did some stretches with me, and he taught me breathing exercises. And he told me that, he goes, hey, look, a lot of guys don't listen here. He goes, but if you learn these breathing exercises, you'll outwind everyone and outrun everybody here. And remember, at the time, I was 33 years old. I wasn't a teenager
Right.
that you have to force to teach. I was actually an open-minded adult at that time. So I listened to him, and I did those breathing exercises. And, like around the fourth to fifth day, I'm doing the breathing exercises. And, so the place was a warehouse. Pretty
Right.
much, okay, with a ring in the middle, and they had a practice ring on the side, which they would pick up and move. They had shows in there every weekend, and there was like paint splattered on the ground. Well, as I'm doing the breathing exercise with him, and he would get a couple of the guys to do it, which every now and then they'd disappear, and he'd recycle them. But I'm doing the breathing exercise, and out of the corner of my eye, I can see the paint moving.
And give yourself the euphoric.
Oh no, it was worse than that. So, and then I had a headache. I had a really bad headache since that first day that I was there, and so I told him, I was like, is it me or is the paint moving? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I don't know. My head hurts and everything. And he goes, look at me for a second. So I looked at him, and he's like, oh, follow my fingers. So he was making me follow his fingers and everything with my eyes, and he calls the Tower of Torture over, and he goes, I think he has a concussion.
From doing
And-
bumps.
Yeah, from taking the bumps,
Yeah.
yeah. And so the Tower of Torture, his name's Lathon, grabs me by the shoulders. He goes, and he whistles really loud, and I cringed like a what do you call it, a snail crawling back into his shell. I cringed complete. I could not handle that sound. He's like, oh, yep, you got a concussion. He goes, you need to go. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Oh,
He goes, rest. You need to rest your head. And I took 2 weeks off. I went home. I took 2 weeks off. After about 2 weeks, the headache, about a week and a half, the headache went away. I had a sore neck and everything, and it was years from banging my head
Yeah.
on the back of the mat. And so right before I started going back, I was like, well, you know what? I got to learn my bumps. So I would stand, and I lived in an apartment complex, and there was grass in the front, and I would go downstairs and I would take bumps on the grass.
No.
I was like, well, if I could bump on the grass, I'm going to be able to bump in that ring.
Yeah.
So I started learning how to bump. So I could do anything from standing straight and falling back to kicking my legs up, having my body up about 4 feet in the air and falling down and learning how to bump. When I got back to the school, I was bumping like a pro at this point. I wasn't banging my head anymore because I learned how to tuck my chin and distribute my weight. So I kind of graduated. It was like a milestone for me.
Yeah.
I can take a bump, okay? Then I had to learn how to take a bump in the front. It just got worse after that. They teach you how to fall face first and everything, and just to make a real long story short, I learned that bumping to the side was the easiest out of all three. But yeah, I was doing face bumps, back bumps, side bumps, and phenomenal. I couldn't believe I was learning this stuff. The whole time my wife thinks I'm wasting my time and like getting on me because I need to focus on work. I do want to add that at this point in my life, I wasn't just a kid in the street.
Yeah, you were 33. You
Okay,
said.
I was 33 years old and I had a career.
Yeah.
I was a Wall Street broker. And so I was selling stocks, in the morning and practicing wrestling at nighttime, which all my friends thought I was completely insane for doing. But I kept doing it. You know why? Because it was kind of like living the dream.
Right.
And sure, I've had friends tell me, what if you break your neck? What if you do this? You incapacitate yourself. How are you going to take care of your family? You really don't think about that. I wasn't into super athletics when I was a teenager. This was me living my life again.
Yeah.
Athletics, it was. I actually learned how to do front flips, back flips. I lost my fear of heights. They would have me climb up to the top of the ring post and just stand there because I had a terrible fear of heights, and I lost my fear of heights from actually wrestling, from doing that. About 2 months go by, and I do my first show. And I was a referee, and they introduced me as referee Louie Lopez. And I just went in and I just did my thing. I just had to pay attention and know when they had to take it home.
Yeah.
And at that time they didn't have the little microphones in your ear that said, they
Take it home. Take it home.
Okay, there'd be somebody on the outside of the ring, take it home. So, and they would also. They'd give you time. They'd say, hey, look, this match is going to be 5 minutes. The clock is up there. Pay attention to the clock.
Yeah.
I remember that now. They had the big clock. So I would look at the clock at the beginning of the match, and I'd be like, okay, this is the time when they got to stop. And I did my thing, 1, 2, 3. I did a great job as a wrestler, let's just say. I did no faults and everything like that. I stayed out of wrestlers' way. One wrestler did swing at me and hit me in the jaw, and he dislocated my jaw slightly.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Place, wrong time. It was just he was just yelling at me because I wasn't paying attention to the bad guy beating his partner, which is part of the match.
Right.
And he went to swing at me, but just barely clipped me. The next thing you know, I couldn't chew for about a week, and I ended up going to the doctor because my mouth was sore, my neck and back was all sore. And he's like, well, your back's all gnarled up. What are you doing? And I was like, well, I've been wrestling and everything. And he taught me a trick to loosen up my jaw. It was like taking my fingers and doing them separate, holding my jaw open. I mean, literally within 2 days, I was able to chew again. I thought that was amazing. That doctor knew what he was doing. But I kept on. About 2 months later, and I'm doing shows like normal. There was a championship match, and this is all independent circuit wrestling, and the guys that were actually in the ring were high profile wrestlers. They were actually trainers in the school as well, and I was in a high profile match, and I'll never forget it because they had to take it home, okay, and the champion was supposed to win, but at this point he's on the ground. And the bad guy crawls out of the ring and he gets a chair to hit him with the chair before he gets up. Now, you understand, I was new guy. They didn't choreograph anything with me. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
You know, I just had to make sure that this person won at that time, or else I was. And if you messed up as a referee, you got chopped. Okay, which means after the show, they'd put you, on the, on the rope, and
Oh.
all the wrestlers would chop you to teach
Really?
you not to make mistakes.
Holy
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah, it was a brutal learning experience. So I didn't want to get chopped. That was one thing, because I've been chopped before, in paying my dues and everything. So the bad guy's about to hit him with the chair. And I'm in my mind, all I could think, if he hits him with the chair, we're going to go over 5 minutes. I'm going to get chopped. So when he picked up the chair, I grabbed the chair and took it away from him, from behind him. He was completely shocked. He turned around like, what the heck are you doing? And at that point, the guy that was on the ground grabbed him for a small package. I jumped down, 1, 2, 3 pin, and got out of the ring as fast as I could because I didn't want to get beat up.
Right.
But the crowd went nuts because he, the champion won the match and everything. So, and that was the main event for the night. So I didn't think anything of it. I went in the back. Everybody shook hands. Good job. Everything looked good. They didn't even question why I took the chair from him. Maybe he did, and I told him, well, we had to take it home, so that was the only thing I could do. But whatever the case, the match worked out well. We went home. I come back for a week, do my practice and everything like that. And then the following Saturday is the next show, and usually the referee would just go out to the ring before the wrestlers. Well, I was the first match. And when I ran out, because I did like a little jog just to get in the ring to not take my time, somebody yells out, yeah, a real referee. And the whole crowd just went nuts cheering. Well, that became a pattern. Every time I came out to the ring, I would start getting cheers. And it literally got to the point that I would get more cheers than the people with the belts. And I was just a referee.
Right.
And you'd hear the comments. It was a small arena, so you'd hear the comments. Oh, look, the referee's bigger than the wrestlers. You had a lot of young wrestlers wrestling there. Oh, that referee could beat that guy up, and you'd hear all the things. But the thing is, I was a fan favorite. Only because I did that one thing, that one move. So it must have been about another month, okay? It wasn't even that long. It was kind of soon they came up to me. And one of the head trainers, who's a big guy in the independent circuit, he goes to me, can I talk to you for a little bit? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh man, what did I do now? Yeah, 33
Chop
years old.
time, right?
I was still getting in trouble all the time because I'm a mischievous individual, but I was getting in trouble for lots of stupid things, making mistakes, things and that. Everybody does. It's just part of it. But he didn't chastise me. He actually sat me down and he goes, so did you really get into this just to be a referee? And I was like, well, yeah. I was like, I never thought that I had the size to become a wrestler. And he looks at himself and he looks at me. He goes, look, you're twice my size. Okay. But he was a well-respected wrestler.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's like, look, you're bigger than half the guys here. Okay. You're not the biggest guy. He's like, but you got a great shape. And he's like, you've got something that a lot of guys don't have. And I was like, what's that? He's like, you have ring presence. He goes, haven't you noticed that when you come out, you get popped? That's what they call when the crowd just explodes. But when the tag team champions came out during your match, you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
He goes, I want to try to do something to protect you because the boys are getting upset. And at that point, I was like, oh, man. They're gonna
Time to retire. See you later.
They're going to fire me. I thought I was
Yeah.
going to get kicked out, because I'm taking away the fanfare. So I was like, do you want me to leave? And he's like, no. He's like, I don't want you to leave. He's like, I want you to become a wrestler. He goes, and if you say yes, I'll personally train you. And I didn't believe it. Like, it was like so surreal to me that somebody told me they want me to be a wrestler. But I said, yeah. I was like, first of all, for this guy to ask me, I thought was a real big thing because the pattern I saw was people would be begging him for him to train them.
Yeah.
So he actually turned around and gave me an opportunity. And I started practicing with him, and he goes, "Your first match is going to be with me."
Interesting.
Okay, and it actually ended up being that way. And so at this point, they're like, "You need to come up with a gimmick."
Yeah.
Okay, and this is when it gets crazy. Okay,
So before you get into the gimmick, uh, is your dad still around at this moment?
no, he had passed away.
Okay.
So at this point in my life, my father passed away about a year before I got into wrestling.
The reason why I was asking because I wanted to see if he was able to see you become a wrestler. So
Well, to me, he did from the sky.
yeah.
Okay, to me, he
Yeah.
did, and that was one of the things that made me go on with it. Was the fact is like, wow, look, I've actually fruitioned something that my family has been watching for decades.
Yeah, that's the big thing because when you were talking about how everybody in your family watched it together for like 5 generations, whatever, right? That's like, so you to step into the ring would be interesting. So the other thing, of course, you're about to get into, because you had told me about one gimmick. I don't know if it's the first gimmick you came up with, but how did y'all come up with your first gimmick?
All right, so my first gimmick. So remember the guy that I told you that made me run around the ring 2 times? Well, him and another guy, and I forgot the first guy's name. But the second guy was called Deacon Riot, and their tag team was called the Legionites. And pretty much they were Southern Baptist ministers that they would turn around and tell everybody to repent. They had an iron cross, on their T-shirts, because a lot of wrestlers over there in the young independent circuit, they wear T-shirts.
Yeah.
The reason they do is because if you wear without you don't wear one, you're gonna get chopped. You're zoned to get chopped. Which is, well, yeah, it's part of.
It makes sense.
It's part. People are afraid,
Yeah.
but you know what? If they want to chop you, you got a 300-pound guy wanting to chop you. He's gonna put you in the corner of the ring. He's gonna put your shirt over you,
Yeah.
and he's gonna chop you regardless.
Right.
Okay. So people didn't realize that. Okay. But when you got chopped with a T-shirt, it was a little less painful. So they were like, "We want you to join the Legionites." So the whole plan was, because I was such a face, and I took so much attention, they wanted to turn me into a bad guy, a heel. So they're like, "Think of a name," and I was like, "Wow." And I was like, "Okay." So my gimmick until then was referee Louie Lopez. That
Yeah.
the
The
Lath
guy.
on the Tower of Torture. He came up with that, and referee Louie Lopez. And then so I'm thinking, and I'm talking to this other wrestler, and I got friendly with this other wrestler. His name is Warpath. Okay, he's been wrestling. He was there when I first started. He was, and he was experienced, did matches and everything, and wrestlers love to joke with each other. Okay, when you're part of the clique, so to say, the group as a regular, it's they you're always getting, and I forgot what they call it when ribbed and everything like that, joking around, but it's a fun atmosphere. The ribbing that we did wasn't harmful to anybody. It was always something funny. Well, me and Warpath were sitting down, and he's like, "I'm gonna come up with a name for you." Blah blah blah. Well, about 2 weeks later, because this whole time I'm practicing, moves and everything like that, practicing a match and everything, and one day I walk in, and he's there, and Warpath's like, you're not going to believe this. I've got your name. And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Okay, so I was in the bathroom making number 2, and it came to my mind." And I'm looking at him like, "Seriously?"
Why are you thinking of me on the toilet for?
Exactly. But he came up with it, and he goes, "Reverend Al B. Fair." And I sat there and I looked at him and I was like, wow, that's actually not a bad gimmick name, because I was joining the Legionites, so I was going to be a reverend. Okay? Being a reverend would have been perfect, because I really wasn't a pro wrestler like them yet. I was still a referee. Well, guess what? I'll be fair, meaning I'll be fair.
Yeah.
I'll call the matches fair and square. So, I went to the Tower of Torture, and the other promoters, and I'm like, "Hey, we got the name." Warpath came up with the name Reverend Al before. They're like, oh, we love it. That's going to be great. That's what we're going to do. And so the way they were going to introduce me wasn't through that first match. I was still practicing for that. They wanted me to be ready, but what they wanted to do was the turn.
Yeah.
So they had me for a couple of shows coming out and, just charming the crowd, just doing things, helping the good wrestlers win and everything. So I was more pivoted into almost like a strategy as like the other referees. They had a reputation of being horrible referees, not following the rules. Me, I would make sure I did my 4 count and split them up or get them off each other. And so I really showed that I enforced the rules, which is one of the things that probably is what attracted the crowd.
Yeah.
Because I did it inherently. Now I was doing it on purpose. So even more so, they were getting into me as the good guy. Well, here goes that return championship match. But no, it wasn't a return. It was another championship match with the same champion, and Deacon Riot. Deacon Riot was the muscle of the Legionites. The guy was like easily 290. He was tremendous. He was a big guy, but he had red hair, long red goatee. So, and I mean, he really looked like he came out of Quakerville, and. I'll never forget, like my gimmick was they get thrown into, one of them got thrown into me in the corner and I would get knocked out during the match.
Yeah.
And, so I would be out and the champion would get him pinned and he'd wake me up and, I'd crawl over and I'd be like, 1, 2, and then when I picked up my arm for the third, oh, my arm hurts, and this and that, and I couldn't do the third count. So they would get up and start wrestling, and that went on for 2 or 3 times, okay, where every time I tried to do that third count, my arm would give out on me until, he got up like, what's wrong with you? And the deacon hit him with a chair and pinned him, and I went, 1, 2, 3, and we both ran out of the ring real fast, and the place just went silent. And it went from, the anger of, like, no, this and that, the surprise that the champion lost the belt, okay, over to when they see me, it got really silent, like, no, what happened? And the next thing you know, I took off the referee shirt, and under it, I had a Legionite shirt. So that's when and I became the most hated person in that building for that night. And so then we went on and I did my show. So at that point, I started developing my gimmick.
Yeah.
And since I was a reverend, I kind of did like an Undertaker thing without copying the Undertaker. Right. So I dressed like a priest. So I had a cut-off shirt, which was a collared shirt, and it said in the back, it said repent. And I think I had an iron cross in the front or something. But I bought a long black coat, okay, cloth, material. And I connected the button here, and I put a piece of white tape. So I looked like a man of the cloth.
Right. But it was just a pice of tape. That's hilarious.
It was just a piece of tape, but it looked so good. From the distance, you couldn't tell what it was. It was, wrestling tape.
Yeah.
And I had these huge elbow and knee pads. And I painted a white iron cross on them. And it was ridiculous, comical, but it fit the gimmick.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I wasn't a fully trained wrestler yet, and I needed that protection. Okay? Especially on my elbows that I kept banging all the time. But the next thing you know, I'm part of this group of wrestlers, the Legionites, and we dominated for a short time. And then little by little, we started separating, and I started doing singles matches as Reverend Al Fair. I mean, I even had a finisher called the Hail Mary.
So, question for you. So, that match where you pulled the turn, that was probably the last match of the night since it was championship,
yes.
Right? So, the following week, because for people that are listening, like, the only reason I know this is because I did a little bit of camera work for a PCW, an old wrestling thing that used to be on in Arlington. You know this because you were part of something similar up in New York. But the crowd is generally 99% of the same people every week. They show up. So the same people that saw you do this are now the following week. Y'all are probably the first thing out where like the leader of the group starts talking trash, you take the mic and whatever. But like, how was it like the booze, like, because you go out there, there's a pop, and then now you're walking out being a part of this group who's bad guys, and you're the ultimate heel because you got the big baby face to lose. Like what was that like?
Well, that was actually the plan for the next week. Was we came out, and they didn't know I had mic skills at that time. There was no, I didn't get to talk or anything like that. The
You're just a ref.
Deacon Wright and Bishop, I think the first guy's name was Bishop something, and they did the talking, okay, and they introduced me as part of their Reverend Al Be Fair, part of their, part of their church or their ministry. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And we had the ministry way before WWE. And the great part was, and it was them to me, and they had a little guy called Brother Woodrow, and he was a young wrestler who was just learning the ropes, and they totally abused him.
Yeah.
He was just like he was kind of like the Crash Holly.
Yeah, Crash Holly or the Dudley Boy, Spike
Dudley. Spike Dudley,
Yeah.
he was the Spike Dudley of the group. The only thing, he got abused by his own teammates. But we did show. We would go out and do shows. We traveled a little bit. It wasn't too much traveling back then because that was a school and most of the shows were there on Saturday. But we do fundraisers and everything. But we did shows and the booze were like, I was hated.
Yeah.
But it got even stronger because, wrestlers disappear. Some of them move. Well, at this point, Deacon had to move. He moved to Texas, believe it or not. I've never found the guy, but he moved to Texas. And the other guy, he just didn't show up anymore. Either went to another organization or he just stopped wrestling. But I was still there. And at this time, they paired me up with a girl that actually, when I started, we pretty much started at the same time. Now, this lady, because she was my age, started around the same time as me. She wanted to be a wrestler, but they had her because back then women didn't really wrestle like that. She didn't shine until later on, but she did shine as my my manager and or my valet. And what they did was they dressed her up in a nun's outfit. But it was a sexy nun, so she had a low cut and a slit up her dress.
Yeah.
It was bad, but it was it was still comical.
Yeah.
And she would come out before me with a sign saying he'll save you. And it was or repent or anything to get the crowd mad. So you got to understand, I was a white Baptist minister, preacher, performing in front to it was primarily the crowd was Hispanic and black, very few white people there. So it was the perfect contrast. I was the ultimate heel, and it was funny, and it was also like, wow, this guy's got he's got guts doing this. But she would come out, and there would be times when she'd actually help me win matches. She'd do the distraction, and I'd get people. Then I started to develop. So my first finisher was a submission called the Hail Mary, which could look completely horrible. But they'd finish up somewhere like this in a praying night from behind. It was almost like a sitting down STF or something.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, look, if I'm going to be like a preacher or a priest, I want to do something like an exorcism. So what I started doing started working with the guys, with the boys, was doing like a claw maneuver. So I would grab them with the claw, and then what they would do is they would convulse as if I'm taking the demons out of them, and then it would be like a choke slam. So I called it the exorcism. And it was pretty much a claw slam where I would claw them, pick them up. They would fly up in the air and land on their back, but I would go up with them at the same time, and I'd land on my butt, okay? And it was a devastating move, okay? For some reason, every wrestler loved to take that move. One, because I wasn't really hurting them.
Right.
Unless they fell. If they fell wrong, they got hurt, okay? But literally, I was driving their heads into the mat. And So I started doing that, and it was actually kind of, starting to become like recognized. But then the place closed down.
Yeah.
Yeah, the place closed down. We had our last show, and I remember, the promoter saying, "Hey, you need to get out there and do shows because this place is closing down. But if you got talent, you're gonna make it out there.
Yeah.
So find another place where you can wrestle. Go to the organization, start wrestling, and everything like that." So at this point, I didn't know where to go because I didn't know anybody. This was the only place I knew.
Right.
But my valet tells me, "Hey, I got this place in New Jersey that they're taking wrestlers and they do a lot of road shows. It's also a wrestling school, so we can keep learning." Because I was still a year into this. You need at least 5 years, three. I would say 2 to 3 years to at least know what you're doing. And so I went there with her, and I met Mr. Italy from the WWE back then, Gino Caruso, and he asked me to go in the ring and try out. So one of the guys on the ring, we just did some basic moves and everything like that, and it went well. I mean, because I was trained by one of the best.
Right.
So though I thought I didn't have skill, people saw me and said, "Hey, look, this guy's a good guy. He can wrestle." And so I started wrestling there, and then after I tried out, he's like, "Hey, you move pretty good in the ring. I can see you need a little bit of work, but you'll get by for now." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." He's like, "What kind of gimmick are you doing?" So I told him about the gimmick. Now you got to understand. Now I'm in Lake Hiawatha, New Jersey, and which was about an hour's ride from where I live, so it wasn't that bad. Okay. Traffic nights were bad, but I was out there, and you understand now the neighborhood's completely different. This is all residential. I mean, the arena was actually in a residential area, but that place was commercial. And I remember there was a corner store and everything there, so it was like the perfect spot for a wrestling arena. And these people, this guy, he had a crowd. Like, he had a very dedicated crowd who went there week after week. His shows were I believe they were Friday nights, I think. I think it was Friday nights. But he tells me, I told him about my gimmick, and he's like,
That's not going to go over well here.
yeah, pretty much like that. He's like, this is more of an Italian Jewish thing, and that gimmick really isn't going to work well. It would work well in where you were, but over here it's a different kind of fan base. He's like, "I want to put you with the Italians." And I was like, "Okay, with the Italians." And he's like, "Yeah, so think of a gimmick." So I was like, "Oh man, so who am I gonna be? Harry the Mauler. I'm gonna be, Jimmy Gotts. I was going to be, hey, Tony the Killer. I'm thinking all these names. And back then I was reading this book, and I wish I could remember the book that I was reading, the name of it. But there was, it was a story of, it was like a swords and sorcery type book. And one of the characters in the book was a thief. He was a kid, and his name was Jimmy the Hand. And Jimmy the Hand was famous because he could pick anybody's pocket. He could open up any lock and everything like that. And, like, as I'm sitting there trying to think of the name, I was like, well, let's try to do it around my finisher.
Yeah.
And, so, I don't want to call it the claw because you had too many people using the claw.
Yeah.
And mine was different. Like, I didn't just make them submit with it. I mean, you had a guy that would give people the claw, and, blood would come out of their fingers at one time. I think it was Baron von Raschke or something like that. And mine was different. Mine was a claw bomb. But I didn't want to call it the claw. And I was like, wait a minute, the hand. So I thought about that guy in the book, Jimmy the Hand. I was like, oh, Louie the Hand. It's Italian. It sounds Italian. And I was like, it'll work. Well, when I told him the gimmick, he's like, oh, you know what? That works pretty well with your finisher. He goes, all right, let's do that. Let's run with it. And my first match, I'll never forget. I get in there, and they did they were known for really good commentating. Okay, the first place that I went to, there was no real commentating. If there was commentating, it was done live on the microphone out there, and they very rarely did that. They did give me an opportunity to commentate because I had an injury. I forgot what happened to me at that point, but they thought I was fantastic on the mic at this point. But the place closed down, so it never went to fruition. So now here I am, in New Jersey in this place, my very first match, and I wrestled this guy who was very green, brand new, and the understanding was that I would be over, and I remember when I saw the videotape when they were announcing because they would do the commentating before the match, and so they joined me up with this team, okay, called the Wrestlers Organized Protection Services, the W.O.P.S. Okay,
Oh,
so it's
no.
the W.O.P.S. So
Oh,
it was an
no.
Italian-based team, and it was the manager was called Johnny Diamond, and he was like an older guy, a little old guy who wore like a suit and everything like that. He had his own valet called Diamond. What was it called? Oh man, well I forgot what she was called, but she was very large up on top, and
Yeah.
she was a heavy set girl, okay. And when the name comes to me, her name was Laura. Diamond Vixen, that's what it was. It was Johnny Diamond, Diamond Vixen, and she was blonde haired. I mean, she had the look. Okay, she was definitely the Vixen. And then they had two wrestlers. Okay, they had Big Moose and Little Moose. The only difference between them two was that Big Moose was bigger. Okay, Little Moose was about 300 pounds. Big Moose was about 450.
Golly.
Tremendous, yeah, big guy. Both of them were bald. It was great, and then they had
Louie
Louie the Hand. Short. So I did my first match there, and I'll never forget because it'd be the pre talk, before the show is like they're introducing Johnny Diamond's left nephew, Louie the Hand Zakone, and Gino Caruso is like, the Hand. He's like, yeah, the Hand. He goes, the Hand. And that's how they ended it. Well, at the end of the match, when I did the claw bomb, well, it was called the Hand. So they were both Italian, the announcers, okay, and the guy called it La Mano Nero, like the black hand, and that was my finisher. And the first guy I wrestled, I put him out, and then you hear at the end of the commentary, well, I guess we know why they called Louie the Hand. So, and that started going. Well, whatever they did, they ran with it. I think I did about 200 matches before I actually lost one. Every match I would win. If I lost a match, it would be a DQ. So I never really lost to anybody. And you're talking about a year later, and I'm doing matches, 2 to 3 times a week, okay? We were on closed circuit TV, and I had no clue.
Oh, wow.
That we were.
So were you at the time a heel or a baby face?
I was a heel. Yeah, I was the heel of heels. They brought me in as a full-on heel. I mean, the people hated me, and at that point, and I remember I was learning a little bit of the psychology of a heel, because the whole trick is the heel is the one who makes the match.
Right.
The heel establishes who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. Usually, the heel is the first one that comes out.
Right.
Okay. And I would come out, and I already knew what my job was, is to make that crowd hate me
Even
before
more.
that guy. That guy back there could be a nobody, but he was the baby face as soon as he came out after I got through with those people. So I would walk around, and my thing, we'd come out to the Godfather music in the beginning. That was our thing.
Yeah.
Where, Johnny Diamond would come out yelling and screaming, that's the man, blah, blah, blah. Whoever comes out is going to lose. And then I would come out, and then I had the 2 bodyguards, the mooses behind me. And but my thing was, as I walked, I would look for people, and I would always look for the ones that weren't paying attention. Okay. Now, we really didn't have cell phones at that. We had cell phones, but it wasn't like it is now.
It was like Nokia.
But, there'd be a guy talking to his girlfriend or somebody looking down at the ground, and I'd get their attention. I pretty merely would spit at their feet, or there'd be like a cute girl with the boyfriend there, and they'd be sitting there all meek and everything. And I'd look at her, and I'd be like, hey, what are you doing with that meathead? And they could hear me because I was right up in front of them. And like they look at me, I was like, "Why don't you come with a real man?" And I flex my pecs and everything like that. And okay, by the middle of the match, when the babyface was getting his going on me,
Yeah.
those were the people that you heard the loudest in the ring. Get him! Get him! They loved it.
Yeah.
I would even, make it where they would throw me out of the ring and, I'd get beat up right in front of them and they would get the most satisfaction. I made
course.
people come into that arena. It was, so the psychology I had down packed and I had a really good, I was really well known for being a good heel. And I won all these tons of matches. And the first match that I actually lost was a championship match. It was, I think it was it wasn't even a championship match. I was just wrestling one of their top baby faces, Jay Santana. Allegedly, he was Tito Santana's nephew.
Yeah.
Okay, which leads on to other things. But Jay was a baby face, and I was already an established heel. And man, when that guy beat me with the flying forearm, you thought that he won the world championship. Okay, because it was probably the biggest moment in ECW history when it came to Louie the Hand Zakone. And I got that last name Zakone for a reason. So it was just, it was amazing the way that went. In that time period, the last name Zakone, I got that because they had another wrestler that they brought in that was actually part of the group, but he took a hiatus and came back, and his name was Lucky Zakone. Well, what they did was they made us brothers. So now Louie the Hand had a last name. So, and he was the younger the brother, I was the older brother. So the story was I came in to take his place, where he came in and they made us a tag team. And we eventually became tag team champions. So we ran up the ladder. We ran totally up the ladder on there. I wrestled for a few other promotions where I was, their so-called world champion. Nothing big, but it was just getting experience out there.
So what is it like when you hear the people say, wrestling term being like getting put over, where they put the belt on you? Like, since it's going to happen, is there still like when you win the belt for the first time, like they're like, the person that tells you what's going to happen, or however that conversation happens, like what is that feeling knowing that you're going into the match going to be walking out with the belt?
It's no different than winning a trophy or a gold medal at the Olympics.
Okay.
Because you got to remember, there's a lot of wrestlers out there.
Yeah.
There are a lot. There are more wrestlers than there were ever champions. It's just
Makes
the
sense.
nature of the business. Okay. So for a promoter to say you're going to be the new champion, one, you get nervous.
Yeah.
Because, oh man, how much pain do I have to endure to win this? Okay. When you actually win the belt and the crowd is either cheering or booing you, it doesn't matter. You are still very proud because you could just be one of those other wrestlers that never get anything.
Yeah.
I mean, Andre the Giant, he got a lot of fanfare. He was the biggest babyface, one of the biggest heels ever. He only won that belt one time, and how long did he have it for? Not long.
Not very long.
Not long. And that's, basically, you see, the understanding is when you are a pro wrestler, it's not about being the champion. It's about making the other guy look good.
Yeah.
When you master that, well, then they're like, well, you make that other guy look so good, we're going to put the belt on you because no matter who you wrestle, they're going to look good against you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things about wrestling is you got to respect the people you're working with. You got to try not to kill them, but more importantly, you got to make it look real.
Yeah.
Okay, and making it look real does hurt a lot. So when it's blood, sweat, and tears. So when you actually win that belt at the end of the night, it's a celebration.
Yeah.
Okay, because you don't know how long you're going to have it. Okay?
Well, I think there's also like a trust issue too, right? Because like not only have you earned the respect of the wrestlers, the promoters, and everything, the owner or whoever makes the call to put the belt on you, you yourself know that they trust me to put the belt on there to do, like you said, make it real, make the other guy look good while he's also making you look good. Because generally, when you win the belt, you don't automatically just turn around and drop it to somebody else. So you know that you're going to carry the belt at least potentially for a month or two. So that is the entire weight of that company on you, because generally, guy with the belt is going to be the last match of the night. So you are going to affect how they leave and think about the promotion.
Yep.
Because the big guy that was the main guy whenever I was doing the PCW stuff, his name was Mike Fox, and I don't know if he's still a wrestler or not, but he was the guy for PCW for the longest time, and he was. I saw him be a babyface and a heel, way better heel than babyface, but like they kept the belt on him because he could carry it one way or the other. So, but yeah, so being a tag team and also being the world champ, like when you were when you win, let's go to the world champ thing. You're a heel, so when you win, you're just on the corners of the ring, just kind of taunting all of the fans.
When you actually win the belt, you don't. I didn't taunt the fans. I actually would gloat, which was worse.
Oh, okay.
Because I'd hold it up, I'd point to the belt, I'd make the muscle. I on the back of my shirt it said "Kiss me, I'm Italian." I'd turn around and I'd point to that. I did a lot of things because to me it was all about the fans. It wasn't about me, so I would gloat, but in a way that it was affecting them and they hated it, which was exactly the mission that I was on. My best heel run was probably as a tag team champion with Lucky Zakone, because I had the claw and he had the foot. And so the finisher would either be me doing the claw bomb, or me holding a guy in a position where he can give him a curb stomp. So, and towards the end, I had to move to Texas. And at this point, I had to retire my wrestling in New Jersey, New York, or the East Coast, because I worked for East Coast Pro Wrestling, so we were all over the East Coast, New York to Maine, Pennsylvania, all over the Northeast, and that's when I realized I was on TV. Short Circuit TV. I actually did a show out, and it was deep as dark as Pennsylvania. I'll tell you, I really don't know where I was. All I know was they wanted me to drive five, and excuse me if I say it, but that's how they prefer to be called, midgets. Back then, little people.
Yeah.
But they actually told me, don't call us little people. We like to be called midgets. So I actually stuck with that. But I actually drove to Pennsylvania with them in my car. Okay, we became great friends. They came to my son's first birthday party. It was having them around. It was just like living the wrestling life was really something unique for me.
Yeah.
And I remember going out to this place in Pennsylvania where it was deep and I had no idea. As we were driving, it was all woods. I was like, where is this place? And we got to this lodge. It was a lodge arena that they had. And when I walked out, there was actually people in the stands waving at me like, we're not worthy and everything, because they used to watch me on closed circuit TV.
And you had no idea.
No, I had no clue that I had fanfare. That was actually a proud moment. I was like, because I was like, wow, people know me. It also got to the point where no matter where I went, somebody would recognize me. If I was in Massachusetts, I'd be like in my car getting my gear out and everything. You're Louie the Hand, or if I went to a baseball game in the tri-state area, there was always somebody who knew who I was.
Yeah, wrestling's huge.
Yeah, it is. I just didn't know it was that where my friends were like, man, can't we go anywhere without somebody knowing who you were? And but yeah, the big thing was when you win the belt and everything. But to me, it wasn't the greatest thing. It was just the moment.
Right.
You win that belt. When you win that match, one, you put in a lot of hard work because you really want to make sure you earned it, in the promoter's eyes. So you're going to make sure you work hard, you make it look nice and stiff. And yeah, you get injuries, but that's part of the game. Nobody tells you when you play football you're not going to get hurt.
Right.
Pro wrestling's the same thing. Okay. The only difference is you just sometimes you are trying to kill the guy in the ring, but the reality is it's a sport and it's a gentleman's sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. And the thing is, we had to like wind it down now because in a couple of months I was moving out of state and I wasn't be able to come to do shows anymore. So the first step was losing the tag team belts, and we had the tag team belts, I believe, for about a good 6 months, which is a long time, being that we did every week. We wrestled at least 2 to 3 times a week, and so this to me was the highlight of my career. Like I mentioned, when I was a kid, I used to watch, wrestling with the old managers, Classy Freddie Blassie, the Grand Wizard, Captain Lou Albano. And if you remember Captain Lou Albano, he was a guy that he would have his goatee and a rubber band, and eventually, he had safety pins in his face. He was more notably remembered for the rock and roll wrestling era when he joined forces with Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah.
And like Girls Just Want to Have Fun. He was
like the dad in the video.
He was like the dad in the video. Yeah. Well, Captain Lou Albano was the reason why I lost my tag team championship belt.
Really?
He actually managed as a special guest manager the tag team that was going to be up against us, who were the complete underdogs for this match. And I don't remember what they were called because I mean you bang your head a lot in the ring, you lose your memory, but I do remember that their gimmick was they were Jedi Knights.
Oh no.
Okay, so they got beat up all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, but they had wrestling moves. They had good wrestling moves, and but they would come in with the Obi-Wan Kenobi robe with the lightsabers and everything like that. And we gave them a beating. They earned that belt. We gave them a beating, but Captain Lou Albano was the one who distracted me, and they were able to get me in the finisher, and I ended up losing my belt. And that was actually a very big show. We were doing shows in arenas, big arenas at that point. And it was a big show, and I lost, and that was like great for everybody because I got pinned, which the loss actually caused some friction between me and my brother.
That's what I was going to ask. So you getting pinned, your brother turns on you, like at the end of the match or maybe the following week?
Well, it ended up the following week he interfered in a match and cost me my match because I did a singles match. And at that point, he was jealous, or actually he was very mad at me because I lost the match. It was my fault. So after that, we declared a duel, and the terms were the loser sleeps with the fishes.
Instead of was it a pink slip match? It was your dad.
Yes, it was the loser sleeps with the fishes, and it ended up where we were wrestling. I remember he was the foot and I was the hand. It was actually one spectacular move when he tried to curb stomp me, and I caught it with my claw. I picked him up and turned the match around and everything. And when I did that, I injured his leg, and at that point, the referee somehow mysteriously got knocked out or pulled out of the ring, and now the big mooses all came in, and at this point, it was a whole, you had a whole family fraction going on there.
So in that match, were you the baby face or the heel, or was it heel versus heel?
Well, against my brother, I would always be the baby face. Okay. It was just natural. I was the most hated wrestler, but the thing is that people loved me. Okay, because I had the faces. I don't know. I just had that ring charisma, which I really can't explain it to this day how I did it.
Some people have it. It's called the it thing.
Yeah. And I remember, again, going slightly away from there, I remember actually a couple of times we weren't really allowed to go to the corner store. Okay. But if I was like the first match, I wouldn't eat dinner. By the middle of the show, I was starving, and I would sneak out the back, and I'd go to the corner store, and it was a deli, so I'd order a sandwich, and some of the fans would be in there. I couldn't buy my own food. They'd be like, "No, we love you. Let us buy you your dinner, please." So I always get free food because the fans would buy me food. As much as they hated me, they came week after week to see if I would eventually lose.
Right.
Which I thought was funny.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point, right? You go out there taunting or gloating or taunting and all that sort of stuff. You know, just like when you had the guy throw you in front of the people you just taunted, right? So they're going to come back the next week to see you get beat down again, right?
Yep.
I mean, yeah. So you have this match, the entire family gets involved, and then referee wakes up and you are down on the ground and you get pinned, or
Well, what happened was at that point, my brother realized that it was a setup to get me out of the way. So at this point, the mooses were climbing up the rope and splashing me one after another. I must have gotten splashed like 10 times. Then my brother tried to fight them. They knock him out and they put him on top of me. So when the referee woke up, he does 1, 2, 3, and naturally I lost. So I was ejected.
you slept with the fishes.
I slept with the fishes. I was actually carried out of the arena because
Yeah.
I got body pressed so many times. I got slammed so many times. No man could have lived through that.
Right.
But yeah, after the show, there was a little celebration and everything like that. My going away party, and yeah, I moved.
And that was your last match too?
Nope,
No.
nope.
So you come to Texas.
I moved to Texas, and I still had the bug in me. About 2 months later, I moved to Texas in June of 2006, May or June of 2006. By August, I had that itch.
Yeah.
I was still exercising, staying in shape, but I wasn't done. And I actually did some research, and I found this place called Extreme Championship Wrestling in Denton,
Okay, is that the XMC?
XCW.
Yeah, okay.
XCW. And the funny thing is that like when I was wrestling, I was always buying wrestling books, and I was reading one, and I read about XCW, and one of the wrestlers called Seth Shai. He was actually, I don't know if he was a champion there or whatever, but I seen his picture in the magazine and everything. And so I go there, I call them up, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm from New York. I've done some wrestling. I'd like to come by, see if I can join your team. I was always very humble with them. I never gloated what I did or anything
Yeah.
like that.
I was on closed circuit TV. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, never told them
Right, right,
anything
right,
like
right.
that. I just said, hey, look, I'm
Yeah.
a worker, and I'm looking to do some shows. And they were like, well, come on down and try out. So I went out there. I think it was on a Tuesday. And the arena was done really well. It was an old church that they converted into an arena, and so the fan base would be on the ground floor, and then they had a second level all around. And so they had a music room, the electronics area. They had a commentator booth, and you would come out from the back walking toward the crowd. So there's no walking outside. If you want to walk outside, you had to go in the ring first and then step out of the ring to walk around. So my entrance changed a little bit because the first one was with the Godfather music, very slow and methodical, and
It is time for you to go to bed.
Alexa,
Dex-
stop. Sorry, that happens every straight. That happens every podcast. Part of the.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead. You walked out, Godfather.
so I went out there, and I tried out, and I did my thing. They're like, hey, they liked me.
Yeah.
They didn't dislike me. I'll tell you that much. And they're like, hey, we want you to to start to work with us. Can you come down next Friday? Or they wanted me to practice for like a week or two. I practiced for a week just to get, because I've been off for 3 months, so I needed to get limber again and everything. Even though I still worked out, the routine for wrestling is a lot different. There's a
Yeah.
lot more running involved, a lot more stretching. You notice that a lot of guys, they take off for a certain amount of time, they come back for one match, and they tear a muscle. I was way ahead of that. I knew that you have to stretch yourself and be prepared and strong. So I got myself into prime shape again. Still doing my breathing exercises, which intimidated all the other wrestlers because they were like, "This guy's crazy." Kind of helped me a lot because there's a lot of abuse in the industry, but when the people are scared of you, they respect you. And I could take a punch too. So if somebody actually tried to stiff me,
Yeah.
I would stiff them right back, and the next punch would be like a feather. I was actually, I was respected. Let's just say that. And so I went, and I remember practicing there a few times, and it's so weird how my life was, because like my first, when I was in New Jersey, my first, and I'm going back now, but when I was in New Jersey, my first superstar that I wrestled against was actually Tito Santana.
Oh, nice.
Okay, with his nephew. But I literally, I mean, all the old Hacksaw Jim Duggan, all the old WWE wrestlers at that time, which were like, now they were out of the WWE, but they were back in the independent circuit, were all there. I mean, I used to smoke cigarettes with Superfly Jimmy Snuka at the back of outside the arena. So I mean, to tell you, like I had wrestlers. There was so many that I knew. I can't even name them all. But when I came over to Texas, there was this one guy who was really in amazing shape, and he was Ivan Putski's son, his real son. And I met him once, and I may have seen him 2 years later, because he was traveling or something like that. But I met a lot of new wrestlers, coming out to Texas, and they wanted me to be a heel. But, well, guess what? I was working for a very large, I remember this was my part-time job. I was a stockbroker, and I moved to Texas with my company.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think's going to happen when I tell the people in my company that I'm going to be doing a wrestling match in Denton? They all showed up. It was bring your own booze. I had about 50 people show up to my very first match, and they brought their booze, because it's bring your own booze. So they had their beer and everything, carts with beer. They were all drinkers at the time.
Yeah.
That was the age, I was in my 40s at the time, and all these people are in their 20s and 30s, so they were partiers. And you got all these professionals coming to Denton to watch me wrestle. It didn't just happen for my first night. It was week after week. That was the weekly thing to come watch Louie the Hand wrestle. So, I had a fan base which grew into the crowd. So the legacy XCW crowd actually started liking me, because all these other people would come in and chant, Louie, Louie, Louie. And so my first match, I was literally up against a heel, but it was two heels fighting. It was kind of like, hey, let's just see what you got kind of match.
Right.
Well, it ended up being a pretty good match and everything like that. And the next thing you know, they had to turn me into a baby face, because the people actually liked me and they wanted to use that. They wanted to...
Yeah, sells T-shirts, sells tickets too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was a face for the longest time. I was out of my element, okay, because, although I was a baby face fighting against my brother, I really wasn't a baby face. I was just, an attitude. It was like, at that point, it was attitude era, so people like bad guys.
Right.
And so I would wrestle and I tried to keep it as a baby face, but I was just not a baby face. But I did it. And I'd get my cheers and everything like that. And at one point, the highlight of my career was I won tag team champions with that guy, Seth Shai, so they created a thing called, because I don't know, I guess I helped it, but they created a thing called the Family. Okay. The Family was a group of wrestlers that joined forces, and some of them were well known. Like Seth Shai was pretty well known. The Necro Butcher, very popular wrestler. If you're not familiar with him, he was the guy in the movie The Wrestlers that was stapling the dollar bills onto what was the actor's name?
Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke's head. Okay, and gave him the heart attack. He was one of my tag team partners. Okay, that guy was scary.
Yeah.
And he was a hardcore specialist, which, if you ever watched him, his matches were almost scary to watch, because how a human would go through that stuff. I didn't do hardcore stuff. I came close. I've done barbed wire and...
See, that's what I was going to ask you.
Well, limited, okay?
Yeah.
I never did anything crazy. There was time when there was a barbed wired bat involved, barbed wire on the ropes. I did table, ladder, and chair matches, okay? But I didn't do the crazy stuff like light bulbs and things. It just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
Okay? I had enough injuries without having to add, stitches to it.
What was the toughest bump that you took during your career? You're like, I don't remember. That's why
The toughest
the one I don't
bump,
remember.
I think it's a combination between me being, because I was doing a ladders match, and I was at the top of the ladder, and the guy jumped off the rope and drop kicked the ladder, and I fell outside of the ring.
Oh, that's a
Yeah, but you know what? It was okay. It
yeah.
wasn't, I didn't get hurt. Probably one of the worst bumps I ever took was the the manager or girl of this tag team. I was gonna, I set up a whole bunch of chairs, and she was, she jumped up and grabbed me, did a Hurricane Rana, and I flipped and I fell wrong on the chairs, and I had this huge knot on the side of my neck. I thought I was gonna die or something, but it went away after a while. I've taken some pretty nasty bumps early in my career practicing. I actually broke my neck. Yeah, it was practicing. I was taking a flapjack with two wrestlers, and I don't know what happened. Either I fell wrong or they arched and made me go head first. Regardless, it's you're seconds away from an injury at a time, so it's never anyone's fault.
Yeah.
But I landed on my head, and I remember this was in Long Island Wrestling Federation when I was brand new. All I heard was, "Oh my God, he's dead." And I heard him, and I got up, and my neck was like in this weird angle, and my arm was completely paralyzed. And then I straightened my head up, and I heard click 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 click, and it was like somebody plugged my arm back in, and it turned back on. And I got mad. So I ran the ropes and I did some front bumps and everything like that. I'm like, all right, let's go. And these guys were terrified. They're like, they just seen a guy literally break his neck, and he's doing drills to come back. And I was known for that. I was known for as being a team player. If you get injured in the ring, and this is the hard part about wrestling, people don't realize this. If you're playing football and you sprain your ankle, you're out of the game.
Yeah.
If you're wrestling in an arena and you sprain or break a bone, you're finishing that match. Unless it's something where it's a compound fracture, where okay, that's obviously common sense. But I've torn just about every muscle in my body. I've hit my head. I've hurt my back. I've been hit with chairs where I don't remember 1 second to the next after getting hit in the head. And you finish your match,
Yeah.
you finish your match. And one time I had my nose, and it was early in my career too. This nose right here was like over here on the side of my face. I was wrestling a guy that didn't speak English. I spoke Spanish too, but he spoke a little English, and he always wanted to do like a flying leg kick. So I told him, sweep my leg, as I'm pushing him, and he comes, and I'm ready for the leg to come down. The next, I see this big heel come from my face. Luckily, he got my nose, okay, because it's not the prettiest thing on my face, but if you look at it real good, you see it's still twisted, but it was completely shattered. He could have knocked all my teeth out. I thank goodness that didn't happen. But you're seconds away from injury at any time. I've had back injuries. Actually, from that neck fall, I was fine. I had a little hard time doing pull-ups at the gym, that week. But after a while, I got my strength back. But I developed some type of bone spur in my neck or something. And one day I was at the gym doing leg presses, and something happened back there where I was just getting shooting pain down my arm. I went to the hospital that night. They gave me a shot as a painkiller. I went home. I felt that pain in my sleep. And I ended up going to neurologists, chiropractors, masseuses. Nothing could do it until 5 years later. And I wrestled like this. So at this point, I was living on muscle relaxers and anti-inflammatories.
Wow.
Okay, well, that's what the doctors gave me, and that's
Yeah.
what I was taking. Oh, the two combined, I was like Superman. I was able to leapfrog guys that were 6'5". I was doing amazing things, but those painkillers, they actually help you do that. And but I did it for like 5 years until I found this sports medicine place, which eventually led to them doing acupuncture. And I'll tell you right now, my chest was completely flat. So I couldn't wrestle without a shirt because I was lopsided. And I had no tricep. I couldn't take a 5-pound dumbbell and go like this. I should have retired. People think I'm crazy for not retiring, but hey, I was still a wrestler.
Hey,
I kept
you
doing
do it till you can't.
I picked everybody up with my right arm. I was known as being very strong for my size. I would pick up guys 400 or 500 pounds and do sidewalk slams. And you're literally lifting them up because they're hanging on to you, but they're big guys. And I would get standing ovations. Like people would stand up whenever I did a feat of strength like that, which I thought was pretty cool as well.
Even your finisher, just doing the claw to the chest, you're having to.
Well, it was to the head. It was to the head, and I would grab the seat of their pants and lifting up and throwing them. Yeah, so my claw was always a very clean, and it always was a devastating move where people believed, because remember, it's all about, it's got to be as real as it can be. And nobody gets up from something like that. So I was very fortunate to have a very simple move that I came up with, which actually worked. And but no injury, yeah, tough things. I've been suplexed on the concrete. I got suplexed on top of a metal garbage bin, on top of a car. I one time got thrown out of the ring onto the first row of chairs. Yeah, I've done a lot of crazy stuff.
Is any of that stuff on TV? Somebody somewhere, at least with the closed circuit stuff.
Well, if you Google it, Louie the Hand, the family, XCW, you'll what do you call it? You'll find some matches there, and the crazy stuff that I did really isn't on there. There are some matches. There's one where we did like a three level power suplex from the top rope or something like that. Some crazy stuff like that, but nothing really. Yeah, the all my crazy stuff was usually done after the matches, as opposed to during.
Yeah.
So it was kind of crazy. So.
So, were you trying to tell us that you found one of his matches?
Not 30.
Oh, okay. He's telling us the go home. He's doing the go home thing. But no. So, when you decided, or did you decide, or was it? I guess was your last match when you knew that you were having your last match? Was it something that you decided to do, or did you have to do?
I was weaning off. Okay, at this point, I'm about 2009. I'm about 45 years old. Practicing was harder. When you practice as a wrestler, you actually worked harder than you did in a match.
Yeah.
Because the match had to be, strong, and the way to do it is by working twice as hard. So those were starting to become a beatdown. I wasn't getting any younger. I knew that I wasn't going to have the longevity of some other wrestlers. I mean, I thank God that I'm 59 now. I'll be 60 next year, and I'm still walking around.
Yeah.
Every now and then I'll get a little click in my neck that'll bother me, but it's fortunate. I mean, I do get times when I get spasms in my arms and everything, but it's not common. It doesn't happen all the time. So I'm very fortunate that I'm still walking around and I still have my brain. I'm still intelligent, and though I remember most things, I forget some.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think that's more old age and getting hit on the head.
Here's what I'll tell you. I don't have the greatest mind ever, and I really have never taken a bump ever.
But I was very fortunate. I give it credit that somehow I mutated when I was about 17, 18 years old, and I had like a superhuman body.
Yeah.
Because when you are a pro wrestler, you're literally getting injured one night and working the very next. And I was able to do that. Okay. Granted, you take painkillers to get through it. Muscle relaxers for my neck was a necessity. I need to take those every day, much less for a wrestling show. And I never abused it. It was pain management. That's what it was. But once I got the acupuncture, literally, and I'll tell anybody, lifesaver. My chest literally grew back. My tricep is probably about 90 to 95%. I got the strength back in it. So where I couldn't lift 5 pounds, I couldn't even bench press. What kept my muscles looking good was all the breathing exercises that I did. For some reason, the correlation, the movements build your muscle. So I didn't have to go to the gym as much as a normal guy, and plus I was always wrestling.
Yeah.
When you're picking up guys that are anywhere from half to double your weight,
Yeah.
you're getting strong, and so towards the end, XCW was about to close down and move to I forgot some almost Oklahoma. At that point, I made a decision saying, you know what, I'm getting old. My matches aren't as good as they used to be. I think it's time to hang up the boots.
Yeah.
So I did.
So what was your last match like?
My last match was at XCW in the new arena. I did one match up there, and I mean it was decent. It wasn't bad, but then after that, it was just like I live so far away. I didn't want to drive an hour and a half to wrestle every Friday. You know, the convenience of being in Denton was it was a half-hour drive. It's a little longer now because they built new highways and the traffic got worse.
Well, California moved here.
Yeah, and so I enjoyed the fact that it was because I'd wrestle, do my thing, come home. I wasn't a hangout type of guy. Very rarely would I hang out with the boys, and we go to either Rubber Gloves or something like that and have a couple of drinks. And I wasn't much of a drinker. So very sporadically I would hang out with the boys after a match. My wife and my kids, they came to pretty much every match. So when I was done, I went home with them.
Yeah.
So luckily I never got really injured in front of them, which is something I never thought of. All my bad injuries actually happened before they started coming to my match, and it was during the learning process. So, but my last match, it wasn't a grand tour. It wasn't like when I left New Jersey. It was pretty much kind of like weaned down, and then I just stopped, and it was just I missed it, but not that much.
Right.
Okay. At this point, I was like, no, I don't need to work out today because I don't need to be in shape and everything like that.
I ain't taking a bump today, so.
Yeah, and I did maybe one or two cameo comebacks, and after going in there and not being able to breathe, I was like, no, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah. Thanks for the quick paycheck, but I'm going to go back to.
Yeah, and then of course then you start having all your health issues as you get older. I ended up started getting kidney stones. And there was no such thing as going to wrestle when you have kidney stones. It's just you're just not gonna chance it, everything like that. But kidney stones was pretty a nice little portion of my life where I kind of suffered for about 4 or 5 years with that till I learned how to manage that,
Yeah.
which was
That was one of the things that you and I talked about. I don't know if you remember that, where last summer I had my first kidney stone, and I was at the pool. You were at the pool.
Yes.
And I was doing this jump and bump thing, and you're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I've got a kidney stone." You're like, I get those all the time.
Did it ever
You'll be
come out?
fine." Oh yeah. Here's what's good. Here's what's good about it, or not. There's nothing good about a kidney stone. So, but we had the laser treatments ready to go, and I passed the kidney stone like a day or two before. So we saved was it like $2,500?
Oh yeah, lithotripsy. That's no fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was either that or I forget what the other way that they do it, but it was, well, I think they go up there and then they grab it or whatever. I'm not sure, but it was one way or the other. Something was going to happen, but I started doing this thing called the jump and bump. I don't know if you know about that, but
I did. That's one of
yeah.
the things I learned how to do that too.
Yeah, and I did that. I attribute the jump and bump to getting that kidney stone moving to the point. And it was one of those moments where, not to get too graphic, but I was going to the bathroom, and it felt like the basketball hit the rim, and I knew that the kidney stone had moved into my bladder. And so once that happened, it hurt so bad, and I was like, oh, that means it's in there. So I ran in here. Chrissy was working right there, and I just started just guzzling water because I knew that I needed to refill everything to get that out. And when it passed, I was like, yes.
Oh my gosh, I've had such horrible episodes with that. So my first kidney stone was actually, and it was I guess somewhere around 2011. So I was already retired for 2 years, and I was driving with my family to New York. And we've done that ride a few times,
Yeah.
It's just like an annual thing. and because I had to visit my mom and my sister who were still up there, and I'll never forget, we were in Memphis and we had dinner. The next morning I woke up and I just felt bloated. You don't know it's a stone, like
Right.
you feel
Not the
bloated. You
first
think
time.
you have gas.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, it's got gas, so I'm taking Gas X all day, and nothing. It's not relieving. And then we're driving, and I'm feeling so much pain. And I told my wife, all right, no, let's just stop at a hotel. I'll rest. It'll pass eventually. The next day, I just got smart and I took Advil, and the Advil calmed the pain. So I was able to drive and make it to New York, and I get to my mom's house, and at this point, I'm pacing back and forth because I felt like my side was going to explode. So we ended up going to the hospital right then and there, and the nurse is laughing. She's like, "Ha, now you know what it's like to have a baby." And I'm
That's
like, "Why?"
rude.
She was so wrong. And yeah, it was a kidney stone, and they gave me a painkiller, and this is how painful it is. The first time, because afterwards you learn how to deal with the pain.
Right.
But the first time is so traumatic where they gave me a painkiller and nothing. I was still in pain. And I'm telling the doctor, look, doc, I can't take this. I'm really in pain. And then they're like, well, give him morphine. So they put a shot of
Wow.
morphine
Dang.
in me. And about a half hour later, I'm like, it's not working. You got to do something. And he tells the nurse, give him another shot of morphine. He's like, another one? He's like, yeah, give him another shot of morphine. He's in pain. So they gave me another shot of morphine. 20 minutes later, I'm like, it's not working. So he tells the nurse, give him another shot of morphine. She's like, another one? He's a big guy. Give him another shot of morphine. So they gave me the shot of morphine, and I think the first two were placebos, because when he did that third one, I actually felt it crawling up my arm.
Yeah.
Because they had an IV, and it crawled up my arm, and I was like, ugh. And that was it. The pain was gone. And at that point, now I'm laughing at the nurses, joking around with them, and they send me home. They're like, look, you have to pass it, or you have to see a urologist, because
Yeah.
the hospital there wasn't going to do anything. So I managed. They taught me, hey, look, before the pain starts, you should be taking a painkiller, so you're not in agony. So that's how I learned how to manage that pain. I had a lot of practice with pain management in the
Right.
past, so I did that. And this is in New York. We went to the beach, and everybody was telling me that somebody told me drink about 6 cans of Pepsi, and all that stuff. And I was like, no, it can't. That can't be good for you. Needless to say, I went to Texas, went back home, and I went to see a urologist. And at this point, I wasn't feeling any more pain. And the urologist comes back with they had the MRI and the X-rays, and he's like, how do you feel? And I was like, well, I feel fine. He's like, you're not feeling any pain at all? And I was like, well, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, it would have been a completely different story. But right now, no, I think I'm good. I don't feel anything. He's like, well, based on what I see, you should be in agony. He's like, because not only do you have one, you have 2 stones stuck in your ureter. And he's like, we need to get these out of you before they get infected, they cause an infection. And I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, we're going to have to, do invasive surgery and go in and take them out. And I was like, oh, okay. So when are we going to do this? He's like, what are you doing tomorrow morning? I was in shock. The very next morning,
Yeah.
I was on the operating table, and they went in there. Without cutting me open, they went in. Lord knows how they did that. They had a camera and everything.
Tube right up it.
Oh yeah, the tube and everything, and they took them out. And I had to go through the healing process of that, and I had to have a stent also for 3 days, which another. I don't wish that on your worst enemy. Actually, you do, because they survive it. It's, but then about 6 months later, I had another kidney stone. But these actually, well, it wasn't that. It was I did have another one, but what it was is I had a 3 centimeter stone in my kidney. And because after they checked the kidney, they're like, look, we have to break this up. So we have to get this out of you. So you got a choice. We can do lithotripsy, which is the sonic vibrations, which break it up, or we can operate, cut you open, and take it out of the kidney. And I was like, I'll take the lithotripsy, thank you. And they told me it's going to feel like you get punched in the kidney and everything, but I'll take that over getting cut open any day. When it was all said and done, he told me I made a great decision because it broke it up. It took a year though, and I had 2 treatments done.
Wow.
6 months apart. Once they did the second one, they broke it all up. But in the beginning, they thought I had calcium stones. Okay. Well, what they realized from putting stents in me was that the stents would calcify. So what I was really doing was making uric acid stones, but because they were stuck in my body for so long, my body would calcify it. So like I'd get a calcified uric acid stone. So they wanted to send me to specialists and everything because here I'm making 2 types of stones as opposed to 1. I figured it out. I kind of thought, I looked at the chain of events and I was like, oh, I'm actually calcifying stuff inside of me. So I need to take care of the uric acid. So I stopped drinking Coca-Cola. I stopped drinking soft drinks and what I noticed was it was the high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And that is the culprit. I would drink a can of Coke one day and have a kidney stone the next week, like clockwork. So I realized after some trial and error and going through some bad episodes where, okay, I need to eliminate this from so I absolutely know I'll drink a Diet Coke or a Coke Zero. But I've learned how to drink seltzer water and mineral water, which is so much better for you. But yeah, those kidney stones are not fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish it either. I have not the same story, but like I'll tell it real quick, just because we were in the living room watching a movie, and I started feeling this pain. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick. So I go to the bathroom. I'm pacing in the bathroom, and like it ratchets from like 1 to 4 to 8 to 10, and then I walk in the living room. I'm like telling Christy, I was like, I don't know what's going on with me. I'm in so much pain. And there's an ER right down the road, and I was like, I said, I don't know what's going on with me. I need to go. And like the entire ride there, like I couldn't sit. Like I was planked up my body because it felt like if I just kept my body straight, it wouldn't hurt so bad, but it still hurt. We get to the ER, the pain probably gets to like 11 or 12 while we're trying to get in. They get us in. We get to the room. The pain goes from like 11 to 8 to 5 to 4. And then doctor comes in, no pain at all. And I'm like, I don't know what happened, but we're here. And he's like, I know exactly what it is. He said, go give me a sample. Gave him a sample. He's like, yeah, you got a kidney stone. So they did like the CT scan. Like, yeah, it's right there. You got one right behind it too. So there was actually 2 of them, but the other one was really, really small. And he's like, you got to go see a urologist. So we found out, let's say mid-June, and it passed in mid-August. Yeah, I don't wish that on nobody. But as soon as I found a video called the bump and jump, started doing that, and it passed within a week. So we got a kid at church that's dealing with kidney stones. I'm like, Google jump and bump and get it out. So as you know, when we get to the end of our show, we do this thing called Words of Wisdom, where this is your camera, so we're going to have this on YouTube. I'm hoping to just do this until the day that I die. So YouTube's never going to go away. So whether someone comes across you when we upload it next week or 10 years from now, the Words of Wisdom time is for you to just be like, hey, this is what I've learned, whether you want to do it or not, but this is Words of Wisdom from Lou.
Okay.
Louie the Hand. But yeah, this is your time. You can talk about whatever you want, and then we'll take this home.
All right, so words of wisdom. So so words of wisdom is, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and work out really hard. I say, working out for me has been a blessing for my life because it helped me get through a lot of ailments that I normally wouldn't have gone over because I was in such good shape. My first year as a realtor, I had a heart attack. from all the stress.
I remember that.
Okay, and it was going back to the, and it really wasn't from the stress. It was just the bad food that I ate. Which words of wisdom: stay away from fast food breakfast. Not good for your arteries. I did have a artery that was clogged more than 80%. That kind of broke off and it clogged the artery. I had a heart attack in the gym, and the next thing you know, I was in the hospital getting a stent. So, words of wisdom: eat right. It's never too late to get your body back where it should be, or in better condition than it currently is. Like I say, look, I'm 59 years old. At 55, I didn't know whether I was going to live the next day or not. The other thing is go for your dreams. If you have a dream, work toward it, achieve it, because you only live once in this life. And, as long as it's a good dream, don't do bad things. But, as long, my dream, was always to become some type of showman or a professional wrestler, and, to be, I'm an out of balance performer. That's my personality style.
Yeah.
So, attention is my thing. And I've always wanted to be a performer on stage. And look, I did it as a pro wrestler at 33 years old. That's that late in our life. That's like, it was a blessing to me. I met a lot of very interesting people from all levels of the spectrum when it came to my wrestling career. But another thing is there's also a time you also have to be responsible. Words of wisdom: make sure you have that 9-to-5 job or a career that's also going to carry you through and help you live your dream. Because it's very few people get to live their dream and be rich. I had to work hard at everything I had. Nothing was ever handed to me.
Right.
I started out on Wall Street as a cold calling broker. I ended up becoming, a manager, hiring and training people who became very successful in their careers, who still to this day thank me. And they also came to my wrestling shows. Okay, which was fantastic, and to this day I still keep in touch with them. So take care of yourself. If there's something wrong, get it checked out. Do what you got to do to get it better, and go next. Live a modest life. My thing that's helped me throughout life, throughout wrestling, was being very humble with people. So I was never, although, like everybody can be abrasive from time to time. It's because I joke around a lot. So that can just be mistakenly as abrasive. But I try to be very humble with people. And when it comes to their needs, I try to be very sincere.
Yeah.
So if somebody needs help with something, they know that they can turn to me, and I'm going to help them out and not say no. And the most important thing is, family. It's like they say, God, family, career.
Yeah.
And try to keep it in that aspect, because there's plenty of times that you can stray, but putting yourself back in line is kind of like your repentance. And just because you make the mistakes in the past doesn't mean you can't make things better in the future. So,
I totally agree.
well,
Phenomenal
thanks.
words of wisdom. You hit both physical and spiritual health, and yeah. You got your son is a realtor now, right? Or
Actually, no. He tried to be a realtor. And then, it wasn't coming fast. It was a slow market, too, when he was getting into it. So I wasn't doing that great either. But he decided to be a car salesman and completely flunked at that. It just didn't work out. Whether he went to the wrong place or it just wasn't his thing, I told him it doesn't matter. Okay, you tried it. You had the guts to do it. You learned.
Yeah.
Okay, whether you learn that that's not for you, or you learn some skills that you're going to take to the next job role, that's what's going to count. And now he's actually going to school to become a pilot.
Nice.
He was a baseball player in high school. So he's doing umpiring and refereeing for kids and everything, and he's got another part-time job that But the most important thing is, like, he decided at one point that he just wanted to go to work and be a businessman like his dad.
Yeah.
But he actually, it took a turn for the better, and he's actually going to school. and he's got 2 part-time jobs, and he's living a good life.
Yeah, good for him. Because the last time I ran into him, I think he was going for his test or something like that. Because there was like about a year that I didn't go to the office at all. But yeah, but just to take it on home, man, I really appreciate you coming over here and giving us your time. And see, I knew that you would loosen up, and you did, which was, because I told you, nobody knows you, like you do. So, and I'm so appreciative that you came over here. I hope you had fun.
I had a blast.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect. I've never been on a podcast. I've never really watched one, except for maybe one that's in a movie or something like that.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what to expect. So yeah, I actually was a little nervous. I mean, I know I'm not the camera shy type, but I didn't know what was going to happen. But I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me, though. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming in here. So with that being said, subscribe, tell all your friends, and this has been Aaron Ask America. Thanks for watching.
Aaron Ask America, we're talking real life. Truth, love, and struggle, no filters, no hype. From the heart of the people to the soul of the land, he's asking the questions you'll understand. Aaron Ask America.